New Zealand police given power to restrain citizens for forced vaccinations under new pandemic plan. The framework for action was updated in July 2024, so just last month, and includes special powers, in inverted commas, authorised by the Minister of Health, which will apply in the case of a pandemic declared by the World Health Organization or an emergency declared under the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act 2002. Under the special powers, police will have the authority to detain and restrain members of the public for forced vaccinations by medical staff. Specifically, police will have the power to do anything reasonably necessary, including the use of force, to help a medical officer of health or any person authorised by the medical officer of health in the exercise or performance of powers or functions under Section 70 or 71. The government will also grant medical officers the power to detain, isolate or quarantine any member of the public for any reason related to public health. Members of the public may be isolated or quarantined until they have been medically examined and found to be free from infectious disease, and until they have undergone such preventative treatment as the medical officer or health prescribes. The New Zealand government was among the most tyrannical in the world during the COVID pandemic, with the country suffering under brutal lockdowns when there was a single COVID case in the community. New Zealand's Minister of Health also granted vaccine exemptions to senior staff while hypocritically rolling out the world's most draconian vaccine mandates and insisting the public be vaccinated. The vaccine exemptions for the elite were granted by former Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern's government before she stood down and accepted a new role as the World Economic Forum's global disinformation czar. Ardern's decision to allow the elite to refuse the vaccine while forcing the vax on normal people was revealed by an Official Information Act request, which is similar to our Freedom of Information request. Those of you who want to look it up, it's HNZ 000023978, dated 2nd of August 2023, which asks the following question. According to the legislation at the time in 2021, there were operational exemptions available for those who were not getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Your website outlines the process of applying for an operating exemption under Clause 12A. How many requests were received? How many were approved by the Ministry? Matt Hannant, Interim Director of Prevention, National Public Health Service, Te Watu Ora, replied, from 13 November 2021 to 26 September 2022, a total of 478 applications for significant service disruption exemption were received. 103 applications were granted, covering approximately 11,005 workers. Please note that it's not possible to provide the exact number of workers that were covered by SSDs. This is because it was possible for an organisation to submit an application to cover more than one worker. Meanwhile, a New Zealand government official has gone on the record and blown the whistle on how COVID jabs have killed at least 20% of the population. The database administrator who worked with the New Zealand government compiling a list of vaccine recipients came forward revealing the spike in deaths associated with the experimental mRNA jabs. According to the whistleblower who called himself Winston Smith, he worked on a program logging vaccine compensation for providers and was able to pinpoint how deaths began occurring shortly after the vaccine rollout. And there's a lovely picture there from the Health for umnz.co.nz, and it's entitled The New Zealand Pandemic Plan, a Framework for Action, Interim Update, July 2024, page 125. That outlines their special powers.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, I can...
Okay. Go for it.
Okay. I was just shaking my head through that whole bit, and I stand by my earlier position. Mm-hmm. We have in this country a document called the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to make it really simple. I'm going to go right from the beginning of Section 51, the legislative powers of the Parliament. The Parliament shall, subject to this Constitution, not to a treaty, subject to this Constitution, have power to make laws for the peace, order and good government of the Commonwealth with respect to And thank God for the insertion of this in 1946 by referendum of the people. Section 23A. The provision of medical and dental services, but not so as to authorise any form of civil conscription. The government cannot conscript doctors to hold people down with the help of police and jab them. Okay? This is the protection, and this is what I raised 4 years ago in the video that went viral. And there is the protection to stop what's happened in New Zealand. They don't have that provision in their constitution. We do.
So what do the people in New Zealand do? Because we have members over there too.
I'd get the heck over to Australia quick smart. That's what I'd do.
I wouldn't come to Victoria though.
It's not far. It's not far, my friends. Come over.
The Public Health and Wellbeing Act here in Victoria does provide another form of protection, because a public health order cannot be sustained until there's a testing and examination order that's been provided, which would lead to, and it can only pertain to the individual.
Correct.
It can't be a blanket order
100%.
over a group of people.
Yeah.
Now, I say that Victoria's got a good piece of legislation because, in other states they don't have that finite requirement with respect to the bringing about of a public health order. Like Queensland, a public health order has to be specific to an individual, but Victoria requires a testing and examination be done first to establish whether or not the individual has a quarantinable disease.
Yep.
And this is the key. And I think this is where Victoria is the better of the lot.
See, it's like the the doctrine of the cable principle, where they wrote laws for someone in case they did something. It's the same principle. They're going to stick a needle in your arm in case you get sick. Okay? And once again, there's that protection within 5123A that will not allow a doctor to be conscripted into providing a service for the Commonwealth. What about the state?
The state has to follow. The state has to follow Section 51 as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I remember having this conversation with Malcolm Roberts, constitutional lawyer, one day on a Zoom call, and they were saying that 5123A only applies to the Commonwealth and not the states. I said, that's very interesting. I go, what about this? I'll just put this to you. In America, there was the abolishment of slavery in the United States of America. So if you apply what you just said, where 23A only applies to the Commonwealth and not to the states, that means in the United States of America, I can't have a slave, but I can run back to the states and I can have a slave. And they just went silent because you can't tell me that it doesn't apply to the states.
Maybe people in New Zealand should go back to the original constitution where it was listed that New Zealand was a state. Didn't rely on that.
Yeah,
in the definition
to assist
them. Where was the fulfilment of Section 123 of the Constitution for New Zealand to step away?
Yeah,
well, hey,
that's it.
But New Zealand always wants to try and separate itself from Australia, but if they bring this in, then they might want to reconnect.
Maybe the Maori state might want to join.